What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the CompileSwift podcast. You can find this podcast at compileswift.com, as well as all of the social networks. Just search for CompileSwift. In this episode, I am going to be talking about how you view the importance of the technologies behind your apps compared to that of your users. Okay, before we get started with that, I just want to quickly say how exciting it is. We are clearly in the weekly release cycles for the next round of Apple's operating systems and Xcode tools. We're getting weekly drops for the betas as we rapidly approach the fall here. So that's exciting times. And for me, both Xcode and the beta OSs have been pretty good this time around, I have to say. I'm certainly not experiencing any issues that I had with the earlier iPad OS betas. Okay, let's get into the main topic. So what am I talking about? We, as developers and, makers of things, we get all excited about how we make things. And in this case, we get excited about using Swift and Swift UI and Objective-C and, how we make these cool things and make these tools do what we need them to. But we have to remember to change our perspective when we're looking at, how important it is to tell the world about that stuff. Because mostly, unless your users are technical users, maybe you make a development tool, something like that. If they're not that kind of user and they're just what I would call the 90%, 95% of average users, let's be honest, they're not going to care how you built the app, what technologies you used to build the app with. These are things that only matter to us and kind of our circle of developer friends, if you like. Now, the reason I say that is I've noticed lots of conversations recently about, I'm using this technology, such and such company has moved to some other technology and all those kind of things. And this is just things that you shouldn't be bothering the user with. The user does not care, right? If I look at something from a user's perspective, I care about, does the app not crash? Does it do what I want? And is it performing pretty good? That's pretty much it. That's all I care about, right? I certainly, let's take for a couple of examples here. One good example is Microsoft Teams. I am not a big fan of Microsoft Teams, and I only recently discovered that it was actually running as an Electron app. And I've got nothing against Electron. Visual Studio Code is an Electron app and runs fantastic. But Teams, for me, is terrible. Performance is awful. Now, I read recently that, because I hang out in these kind of developer circles, that they're switching away from Electron, and that's got the world buzzing. And then on the other side, you've got the fantastic product 1Password, which I am a huge fan of for many years, who are now saying we're not going to make a native Mac app. We're going to start making it with Electron or something like that, and having one platform, one code base for the different variations, Windows, Mac, Linux, and things like that. So it's interesting that you see these companies switching around in either direction all the time. Not meaning that they change all the time, but I mean, if you go looking, you'll see lots of companies changing their directions on things like this. And the takeaway there is what works for some people may not work for others, right? There is no definitive what's the best. But ultimately, for all of that, our users don't care. They do not, and they shouldn't, right? They should not care. And our release notes for apps should not be full of this technical information for users. They do not care that, hey, here's an example. I've just rebuilt my app in Swift and it's a new version and I want you to pay for it. If all you did was rebuild it in Swift, firstly, why is the user going to care? And secondly, why would you ask the user to pay for exactly the same app that they already have from their perspective? That's not going to win you over any new users or any friends. If anything, you'll find people will say, I'm not going to bother upgrading if you haven't really provided me anything new. You may be super excited it's written in Swift. Your friends may be super excited it's written in Swift. The user really doesn't care. You've not provided them any benefit. Now, you may want to rephrase that and say something like, enhanced performance, reliability, whatever, rewritten in Swift. That's a different way to put it and put a spin on it that says, hey, user, there's a benefit here for you. And that's what matters, right? You have to portray to the users that there is some benefit to them downloading an update, buying a new version, using the app at all compared to something else, right? if you was to say like, hey, competitive, app maker X has theirs written as a web app, but mine's a native, users are not going to care. Again, you're looking at this from an engineering perspective, not from a user's experience. Now, I get that this sounds like a bit of a rant, and it's not meant to be. I'm just offering some advice about what users care about compared to what you may care about, and it's not easy to see it from both sides. And I'm not saying I perfected it. I try very hard because I experience and I read every review and everything else from apps that I work on from the users so that I understand what's working for them. What do they like? What are their pain points? What do I need to pay attention to, right? And it's clear to me that none of them care what I write, what language I write the app in, that kind of thing. They care about the experience, right? That's what matters. So I just wanted to put this out here as some thoughts. Again, I'm not picking on anybody, and I know I've used a couple of examples here. I'm really just trying to offer some advice to all of us in the developer field and say, stop and think about what matters to you. Does it matter to your user? And keep one on one side of the camp. And if it doesn't feel like it matters to your user, even though you're super excited and spent 6 months on it, don't bother telling them about it because it's a waste of time. You're wasting your time. They're not going to be like, oh, you're awesome because you wrote something in Swift. It's extremely unlikely. Now, with that, I'm going to sort of leave it there for this episode, but I would love to hear your thoughts on this. And if you are really just passionate about something, this topic or anything else related to our development that we do on these Apple platforms, and you would love to come on this podcast and talk about it or just discuss development in general, I would love to do that. I really love one of the things I have learned from doing my live streams, CompileSwift.com live stream, is the having conversations. Developers and even folks who are not developers hang out in there, and we all talk about this stuff, and that's the best part of it. Talking about this with people is exciting. We love doing it. We love to hear from people, get different perspectives. So if you want to come on this podcast and offer that, reach out to me. You can just go to compileswift.com/contact. There's a form there you can fill in, and we can talk about that or anything else, like I say, related to, Swift. Not necessarily Swift either, anything Apple development platform related or something that you feel is relevant. Maybe it's a tool that you found or some awesome course. I would love to hear from you and share that with the audience, because I have learned that we have a fantastic audience for this podcast, and I am just so grateful that you're all out there and provide the feedback. It's just really helps. So with that, we'll leave it there this week. There may not be a podcast next week. I have some things I need to take care of, and I'll try and get one out, but it may not happen. We'll see. I will be doing a live stream again at this weekend because I just love my live stream. You can go to twitch.tv/CompileSwift. You'll find it there. Or again, go to compileswift.com and you'll find the links. And come and say hello, chat and hang out. We have an awesome time. We have a lot of fun. And to all of you that have been on those, hang out in those streams, in the chat rooms, folks like Coco Type and Nick and things like that, just thank you so much. You're awesome. You really make it worthwhile. With that, I will see you in the next.